Why nobody has a lawful right to hold dominion over anybody else. And believe me, the Most High is going to hold some pretty harsh judgment over some people. And that's sad. The amount of people that I have thrown a bone, thrown a life raft, a rope, sent a canoe out for, and they swam the opposite direction. They're just going deeper and deeper. Sad.
One of the things that I've never been able to do in my life, one of the skills that I've never had, and it's probably not helpful for someone who's on social media to not have this skill and to not have this ability. It might even seem paradoxical given what I do, given that, that I do analysis and so on. I try to perceive meaning and try to extrapolate ramifications, sometimes from minimal pieces of information and so forth. It might seem paradoxical that I don't have this skill, but one of the things that I've never been able to do in my life was to ever have any sort of an idea about how I am personally perceived as a person. I have no idea whatsoever how I come across. I have no idea whatsoever what impression people might have of me. I've never been able to do this. My whole life, I've never had that ability to know how I'm perceived. But given the nature of my content and my, sort of critique of the West and so on, as well as the old Awamun series, and now this Ramadan
Okay, before we go on, don't let it bother you, Shahid. Seriously, don't let it bother you. There's an old saying, from a homeless Christian, because I had no church to go to, other than the covenant of me and the good Lord, to a Muslim. Shahid, don't let that bother you, mate. My old mate once said to me, you wouldn't worry so much about what other people thought of you if you knew how seldom people even thought at all. You can't be responsible for other people's feelings if you're just telling the truth. How that affects them says more about them than it does you, mate. Don't worry about it. If they're afraid of the truth, then they got something to hide.
Arabia series and what have you, I suppose it's possible to speculate that I might give the impression of being someone who's kind of upright. I might give the impression of someone who's sort of a moralizing, maybe even self-righteous person. Someone who's maybe deeply rooted in Islam, in principle and in practice, a religious man and whatnot. Now, in Islam, we're not supposed to really expose our own flaws and our own wrongdoing and our mistakes from the past. But I can tell you that I was an absolute villain in my life. Yes, I was. There was a time, I assure you, there was a time when you would have been hard-pressed to find anyone who was worse than me. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not bragging about it in any way whatsoever. I was diabolical. I was a diabolical man, objectively. I was diabolical. It's true. Now, okay, that didn't extend to, criminal activity or drugs or anything like that, violence and so forth. I never got involved in those types of things when I was a young man, but morally, in terms of character, oh yes, I was an objectively horrible person. Yes, I was. I didn't start out like that, but I became like that. I let myself become like that. So I don't know how I come across, but one thing that I know about myself, I know that I'm an intelligent man, and I know that I know that I know how to read people and how to read situations. And at one time, I used all that intelligence and I used all those skills in ways that were, as I say, objectively nefarious. Yes, I did. Manipulative, coercive, exploitative, Machiavellian, selfish. You can say sociopathic even. That's fair. I was an agent of ruin. I was. I don't think there was anyone in my life at that time. I don't think there was anyone in my life at that time that I did not hurt, that I did not betray or deceive or use ruthlessly, cold-hearted, absolutely cold-hearted. I was a cold-hearted man. I'm telling you this for a reason. This is part of the Tarbiyah series, the Ramadan Tarbiyah series, for a reason. Because I was like that while being a Muslim. I don't get to say, oh, I used to do horrible things before, but Islam saved me. No. In fact, the truth of the matter is that I was never even as bad as I was, or as bad as I became. I was never that bad when I was a non-Muslim. I didn't drink or do drugs or go to clubs or anything like that when I was a non-Muslim. I was committed to social work when I was young, before I became a Muslim. But I became one of those people who used the religion as a pretext. I used the religion as a cover. I used it as a camouflage. I wish I could say that I took my shahada and I stayed on the straight and narrow ever since. I truly wish I could say that, but it's not.
What a testimony. Christians, take note. Take note. This is why I won't have anything to do with this. Because you're not Christian at all. And most Muslims aren't Muslim at all. Not here in the West. You're a disgrace. As was I. Okay, pretty much. Who has he just described? I've not come across a cop that's not like that. You're despicable. You're horrible, horrible creatures. I've not come across a politician that's not like that. Slimy and sneaky and have that great vocabulary to whack it over people. The more I learn in alternative literature, the more I see it. Yeah, alternative literature. I'm not too caring about spelling mistakes and what you perceive to be English literature. It's when I see straight through it, and this is also why I see the court's pissed with me. They've figured out that I figured them out. Well, I don't mean any harm to anybody. Politicians, I don't mean any harm to anybody. I'm throwing you a fucking life raft here. I'm throwing you away. Get in the damn thing, paddle to shore. Stop swimming deeper and deeper. Because you're all on the list. I'm on the list. Everyone's on the list. Have you figured out what the list is yet? Nobody seems to get it. Turn your pattern brain on a little bit and realise that what secrets do you hold for somebody else? And they're not yours to tell, it's for them to tell. However, you telling the truth about something you did may land somebody else in the shit. That's not your fault. Is your conscience clear? You don't tell the truth with bad intent. But if somebody else chooses to carry on lying, that's on them.
It's not the case. It's not the case at all. But there are two things that I want you to understand. And I'm telling you this as a cautionary tale. As a cautionary tale. I don't talk about morality. And I don't talk about tarbiyah. And I don't talk about having good character as someone who is unacquainted with the opposite. You understand me? I was the embodiment of the opposite. That's the truth. But there are two things that you need to understand. The first is that as long as I was living that way, the truth of the matter is I was miserable, I was stressed, I was volatile, I had a hair-trigger temper. And nothing scared me at that time, nothing scared me more than facing the truth. Nothing scared me more than accountability. And I knew, of course, I'm a Muslim, I was a Muslim, so I knew, of course, that accountability is inevitable. So you live in a state of constant fear. You live in a state of constant fear, constant tension, constant dread. And you're constantly trying, to keep a dozen plates spinning at the same time, trying to manage all of the people that you're manipulating, the people that you're lying to, trying to hold off the inevitable crashing down of the Ponzi scheme of your deception. The deception, the game that you're running. Because as long as that game is running, you think, as long as that game is running, no one gets hurt. And see, this is the second thing. This is the second thing that you need to understand. Because it's actually horrific and horrifying. And that second thing is that you can be like this, you can act like this, you can be as bad as this, all while believing that you have good intentions. This is how people can lie to themselves. This is how you can deceive yourself. You hide things, you lie about things, you're evasive and secretive and so forth. Things that you know that no one would ever understand or approve of. You're doing things that people would never understand or approve of, but you have convinced yourself that you have the right to do it. You've justified them. You've justified these actions to yourself, but you know perfectly well that no one outside of yourself, that your justification would never make any sense to anyone else. No one else would ever accept your justification. But you think that you can just carry on like this. You think that you can just carry on, and as long as no one ever knows, and you think that if anyone finds out, then that would be the thing that hurt them. Them finding out would be the thing that hurt them. Not the thing that you're doing, but them finding out the things that you're doing. That's what would hurt them. So you're actually being considerate, right? You're being considerate. You're being responsible by keeping it all a secret. This is how it works. This is how people can lie to themselves. Like I say, this is how you can deceive yourself. This is a real world example of how Shaitan can make the evil seem good to you and convince you that the wrong thing that you're doing is actually fine. So yes, there was a period in my life when I was truly, truly an abominable human being. And I got utterly curb stomped. I got utterly curb stomped for that, figuratively, metaphorically. You know what curb stomping is? That's when you get your mouth opened on the side of a curb, and then someone stomps the back of your head. So that's what happened to me. That's what happened to my life. That's what happened to my life. My whole life got curb stomped. My whole life got curb stomped because that's what I deserved. That's what I earned. And everybody that I was doing wrong to, I lost. I lost, but from their perspective, they were relieved of me. You understand me? My losing them was them being saved from the person that I had allowed myself to become. Now, I don't normally talk about myself. I don't normally talk about my personal history at all. But I'm telling you this from the standpoint of tarbiyah. I'm telling you this from the standpoint of tarbiyah. Because no matter how low you might think you are, no matter how low you might actually be in terms of your character or in terms of your morals, I was lower than that. Trust me, I guarantee you, I was lower than that. However low you think you are, I was lower than that. And I got completely crushed for that. I was completely crushed for that. And when I tell you that I deserved it, when I deserved to be crushed for that, when I tell you that I earned that, no, I'm not being humble. You might think that that sounds like I'm being humble. I'm not at all. I'm saying that I deserved to be stopped from being bad. I told you I wasn't always like that. I wasn't always like that. I let myself become like that. But just like anybody else, my fitrah is good. Alhamdulillah. My fitrah is good. And being the way that I was against my nature. Being that way was a self-betrayal. And it's the same for anyone else. And I was so far gone down that path that it was very unlikely that I was ever going to reverse my trajectory, my own self, voluntarily. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala snatched me by the neck and slammed me face first into the consequences of my own actions, the consequences of my behavior. And that wasn't a punishment. I didn't even see it at that time as a punishment. I knew what it was. It was an intervention. You understand? It was an intervention. And since then, I have clawed my way out of the pit that I dug for my own self. I clawed my way back, little by little, year after year, setback after setback, dragged myself forward, tried to clean myself up, tried to stand myself up, and try to reclaim some semblance of alignment with my natural fitrah. And I can tell you that there is no way to do that. There is no way to do that whatsoever. There is no way to do that except by understanding that you are good, you are decent, you are honorable, and that you have betrayed yourself by ever being otherwise. Wallahi, there is no greater disrespect to your own self than doing wrong. There's no greater disrespect than that. And you have to understand that strictly adhering to a moral code, ruling yourself, policing yourself, keeping yourself in check, this is an absolute requirement. It's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And it's the only way that you can ever truly respect yourself as you deserve to be respected. And that's the self-reproaching nafs, the nafs al-awama. This is the part of your psyche that blames you. This is the part of the psyche that indicts you. The part of your psyche that doesn't let you get away with it. Doesn't let you get away with that self-deception. Doesn't let...
Like I say, how's your conscience treating you today? Did you trespass on somebody else's life? Did you create some kind of a problem, ongoing, long-term problem for somebody? It was probably none of your business. Did you put your career before doing the right thing? Did you offer that person any help before you kicked them to the curb when they was already there? Like, I ain't perfect. I'm far from it. I'll never be perfect. We're all flawed. We're born right, and we turn bad. And then from there on, all we can do is try to turn good. Back to good. If your job entails harming other people in any way whatsoever, there's nothing noble about that job. There's nothing honourable about it. Who are you to judge? If you're doing harm to somebody in the name of doing good, you're not doing good. You're just adding to the harm. If you can't do good, do nothing. Leave it alone. If you don't have what it takes to help or to reverse that situation, to influence that situation in a positive way, then all you can do is harm. This is a Muslim, for crying out loud. And you're all, oh, Muslims are going to cut our heads off. Get off it. Get off it. They're just people. Damaged, broken, messed up people that are now stuck in a world that hates them. They came from a bad world to a world that now hates them. And you don't consider yourself racist by any means? Keep telling yourself that while it eats you up. Having a joke and being an arsehole are not the same.
Let you get away with those excuses and those justifications and so forth. You know what I mean. You know exactly what part of the psyche I'm talking about, because it's that part of your psyche that the West tries to silence as much as possible. Even if you go to a therapist, they'll try to make you silence it. They'll try to make you ignore it. The West tries to make you ignore it.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
guilt is unhealthy. Shame is negative. Self-criticism is harmful. Don't be so hard on yourself, brother. Take it easy. It's not that deep. You know? Stop beating yourself up. No. No. Anyone who's trying to tell you to stop beating yourself up when you deserve to be beaten up, they're just leading you to the slaughter. Understand this. Because believe me, you would much rather, wallahi, you would much rather beat yourself up and be hard on yourself in order to correct your behavior. You would rather that than for those consequences to come along and massacre your whole life. Because you didn't do that, because you failed to do that, because you refused to do that, because you were easy on yourself. No. I need you to understand how important this is. This is extremely important. I need you to understand how important it is and how urgent it is. And how much is at stake. You have to understand how much is at stake. Because again, in the Western so-called civilization, all of these issues are dismissed. They're dismissed and they're minimized. But the things that you do, listen to me, the things that you do are either going to comfort you and strengthen you as you move through life, or they will haunt you and they will torment you for the rest of your life. Listen, you can't be a man my age and talk about nostalgia or talk about reminiscing or what have you. Unless you are either so blessed and so fortunate that you have somehow, miraculously, been on the straight and narrow your whole life. That's the only way. Or else, you're someone who has never truly repented for the things that you've done. You've never repented, you've never learned, and you've never changed. Because listen, nostalgia and reminiscing are privileges that are reserved exclusively for those people who have lived their lives well. For the rest of us, our memories are more like specters. Specters behind us that are so disturbing, you can't look back. You don't want to look around. You don't want to turn around. And it forces you to move forward. You understand? We want to create as much distance as possible between those old days and our lives right now. We want to create as much distance as possible. And you will never forget what you've done. You will never forget what you've done, whether it's good or bad. Like I said, whether it's good or bad, you'll never forget. And that's either going to be a lifelong source of solace for you, or it's going to be a lifelong source of shame for you. And you are deciding right now, every day, you are deciding what you are going to be remembering in your later years. What you're going to be remembering and what others are going to remember about you. These are the decisions that you're making right now, every day. And listen, I don't mean to sound morbid. You know, I don't mean to sound sad or morbid or what have you when I talk about, having been such and such a kind of way in my past, or about how haunted you can be by your own wrongdoing, how haunted you are after you have clawed your way out of that type of behavior, hopefully. Because yes, it is painful. It is painful to remember having been a much worse version of yourself. But it is also an accomplishment to have improved. You understand me? It's an accomplishment to have struggled and to have made your way back closer to your fitrah, to have reclaimed a better version of yourself, reclaimed. And you can be proud of that. If you have done it, or if you are even engaged in the struggle to do it, you can be proud of that. If you are fighting that battle against your nafs, you can be proud of that, and you should be, because it is a battle. It is a battle, and you will have scars, and you will have wounds, you will have injuries, and so forth. And the further that you have moved yourself away from the worst version of yourself, and the worse that version of you is or was compared to who you hopefully are now. You may have fought through miles upon miles of a war zone to get to where you are. And inshallah, you have emerged, however battered, not unscathed, but you have emerged a better man or a better woman. So even while your memories may disturb you, and probably should disturb you, they also illustrate how far you have come, inshallah. They show you how far you've come. And this is very important to talk about. You know how some people say that a person cannot change? You know, if someone's bad, then they'll always be bad. If they did such and such, then they'll always be that person, the person who did such and such and whatnot. You know, judging someone by the worst things that they've done in their life. This is what a lot of people do. But this is what I want you to understand. It's extremely important for you to understand. I want you to understand this very well. It's not true. We know that people can change because the bad version of a person, when a person is steeped in wrongdoing, that is them already having changed. You understand me? They changed into that person because nobody is born like that. Because we know about what your fitrah is like. Please understand me. This is why it's very important to understand. It's very important to know that your fitrah is good, that your fitrah is sound, that your fitrah is clean. So when you see someone, or if you are someone who is currently far away from that, then you know that that's a person who has already been changed. They have already changed to become like that. And what they need to do now is to reverse those unnatural changes to who they are and get themselves back to their original state. So there's not a question about whether or not people can change. Alhamdulillah, Islam gives you the way to do it. Islam gives you the way to do it. But like I said before, I was a Muslim. Astaghfirullah, I was a Muslim when I was at my lowest point. When I was at my lowest point morally, when I was at my lowest point in terms of my character, I was a Muslim. When I deviated so far away from my fitrah that it seemed like it was just impossible to ever get back to it. So I'm saying this because it's not just being Muslim that's going to restore you. It's not just being a Muslim. You know, Islam comes from the Arabic word for submission, for surrender. And a Muslim is supposed to be the one who submits. A Muslim is the one who surrenders. So you have to treat this in your mind as a verb. You understand me? Instead of a noun. I mean, it is a noun. Grammatically, it is a noun. But I'm saying that the act of submitting, the act of surrendering, this has to be active. You know, I know for non-Muslims, especially for Westerners, they will recoil at the word slave. They recoil from thinking of themselves as slaves even of God, slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They like to think of themselves, and they use the term children of God, but no, you're a slave. You're a slave of Allah, you're a slave of God. You are a servant. That's all you ever are, and that's all you ever can be. And you need to very vividly try to understand yourself as such. And when a slave is told to do something, he does it. When a slave is told to do something, he does it. And if he's told to not do something, then that slave will refrain from it, and that's a good slave. And a good slave knows that his master is watching. A good slave knows that his master is watching, and he acts like he knows his master is watching. And like I said, don't get offended by this. Don't get offended by this, because we're not talking about a human master. We're not talking about a human master. In fact, we're talking about the only master that you can serve that isn't a human master. Do you understand me? Because the truth is, if you are not serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're not serving God, then you are definitely serving some other slave pretending to be a master. You're serving some other slave who's right alongside you and telling you that they are the master, when they're no kind of master. They're no kind of master whatsoever. They're just a slave just like you. You're either serving them or you're serving your own self. And either way, that's a humiliating situation for you. It's a humiliating and misguided situation. No. You're serving the highest master. You're serving the best master. You're serving the master whom it is an honor to serve. And in doing that, you are rejecting every other claimant, every other person, every other so-called authority, every other individual or every other institution, including your own self, that tries to make you a slave. I am a slave to one and only master, one and only master. And everyone other than him is nothing but a slave just like me. And I prove that this is my one and only master. How? By obedience. By obedience to him and him alone. It means not to your own self, not to anyone else. It means if disobeying my own self is required in my obedience to him, then I'll disobey myself. I'll disobey my own self. And when you obey him in disobedience to your own self, that is when you know That's when you will know, without a doubt, who is the master and who is the slave. Because whatever he tells you to do, whatever his orders are, whatever his commands are, whatever his instructions are, it's always going to be better for you than whatever you might tell yourself, whatever you might command yourself, whatever you might instruct yourself to do. So you see, it was disobedience to your master and obedience to yourself or obedience to other than him that led you into the humiliation and into the self-betrayal of wrongdoing in the first place. And the only way out of that, the only way back from that is obedience. That's the only way. It's the firm, resolute determination that you will dutifully, diligently, vigilantly, and to the best of your ability, follow and try to implement what he told you to do. And avoid as best as you can what he told you to avoid. Because listen, you already have experience in following yourself. I have experience in following myself. And we already know, both of us, you and I both know what you get from following yourself or from following other people. You get mixed up. You get far away from where you want to be. You get far away from what you want to be. You get far away from who you want to be. It changes you for the worse. It changes you for the worse. But the one who made you can also restore you. And I'm telling you, don't worry about your heart. Don't worry about your heart. This is what I'm telling you. Your heart is fine. This is what I want you to understand. Your heart is fine. Your heart is good. Your soul is pure. It was your heart that you have betrayed by your actions. That's what your problem has been. Your problem has been your actions, not your heart. Your actions have betrayed your good heart. You understand me? And now what needs to happen is for you to start making your actions align with the goodness of your heart, align with the purity of your soul. Because your whole problem is that you've been doing the opposite. You need to align with the soundness of your fitrah because you're out of whack. You understand? You're out of whack. You're out of sync. You're doing things that your purity would never do. You're doing things that your honesty would never allow you to do. You're doing things that your morality would never approve of. Means you're letting yourself down. That's self-betrayal. It's self-betrayal. And you need to do the things that not only if you do them, you don't mind if people find out about them, but you also are doing things that you can remember with contentment in the future instead of with regret. And listen, I'm not going to mislead you about this. I'm not going to mislead you. This is a lonely path. It's a lonely struggle. No one's going to understand, or very few people will understand. Very few people will understand when you're trying to make your way back to your fitrah, back to your innate goodness, back to your natural, pure self. No one will understand, or very few people will understand what you're grappling with, what you have to do, and how potentially difficult it can be to make every inch of progress. It can be very difficult. I mean, I saw a Muslim sister the other day online talking about how awkward a particular imam was when she went up to talk to him. She said he was very awkward. He turned his eyes down, you know. He was very abrupt. He made it weird, she was saying, you know. She was saying, why do Muslim men have to act like this? Why can't they just be normal? Why do they have to overdo it like that? Why do they have to be so awkward about talking to a woman? It's allowed for a man to talk to a woman in public spaces. So what's the problem? And I'm saying, that man knows himself. He did what he had to do. That man was doing what he had to do. He knows himself. He's trying to guard himself, not from you. There's no reason for you to take offense. He's not guarding himself from you. He's guarding himself from his own nafs. Don't assume that he's making it awkward for no reason. Don't assume that he's trying to look pious and whatnot, that he's just performing. No, that man knows himself. And he was trying to protect himself. And in fact, he was trying to protect both of you from himself. You understand? This is what I mean. Even when you're trying to get yourself back to your fitrah, when you're trying to get yourself back to your true nature, people won't understand. They might assume the worst. You know, they might think that you're overdoing it. They might think that you're performing piety, that you're just pretending, you're play acting or what have you. But never mind. Never mind. You know, it's like those recovering alcoholics. There are certain places that they can't go. They just can't go. There are people that they just can't be around anymore. There are certain gatherings that they just can't attend. They have to demur because they're struggling to try to claw their way back to stable sobriety. Because listen, there's no finish line. There's no finish line in this struggle. There is no point at which, if you reached it or if you crossed it, khalas, now your nafs is no longer an issue. No. You are in this lonely struggle right up until you take your last breath. That's the way it is. You won't get credit for what you're doing. You won't get credit for what you have done. You won't get credit for the progress that you've made. You won't get credit for how much you've changed. People will not necessarily even update their opinions about you. They might always see you the way that they saw you in the past. I've seen drug dealers, I've seen thieves, smugglers, addicts, all sorts of people weeping in tahajjud, making long sujood in salah, fasting, extra fasts, making adhkar, and behind their backs, the people that they used to run with are talking about, now you found religion, right? Now you want to act like a pious Muslim. You weren't like that in the street. Well, how do you want them to be? This is what I'm saying. How do you want them to be? Are they supposed to just stay misguided? Just because they were misguided at a certain point in their life? Just because they were misguided before, they have to just commit to misguidance? If they did wrong before, are they just supposed to never try to do anything but wrong? No. Like I said, they were like that. They acted like that because they had changed to become like that. And now they're trying to get back to the natural self that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them to be. And they're doing it through actions. And that's the only way you can do it. And those right actions have the ability to uncover and to sweep away and to clean off all the filth and all the muck that their wrong actions piled up on top of their hearts. They're excavating. They're excavating what they themselves buried. And you can't blame them for that. Sometimes you think if you see someone who's doing now, they're doing the opposite of what you're used to seeing them do, you think that they're being fake. Like I say, you think they're pretending. You think that they're performing. That it's all a show. No. They're trying to undo the damage that they've done to themselves. And there isn't another way to do that except by actions. But here's the thing about this. This cynicism on the part of other people is actually a part of how you improve or ensure the sincerity of your intentions, because you're not going to get praised for it. But if you did get praised for it, or if you did get credit for it, or you did get acknowledgement for it, if people acknowledged or recognized your efforts and appreciated your struggle, if that happened, if people praised you for it, then you might actually start performing. You understand me? You might actually start doing things just to get that praise and just to get that acknowledgement. So no, the loneliness, as hard as it is, the loneliness of the struggle is in fact exactly part of how you keep it genuine. It's how you keep it sincere. It's how you keep it authentic. You understand me? It's how you ensure that you are truly doing it for the right reasons. Because if you do not do it...
I'll let it finish, it's nearly done.
For the right reasons, if you're not sincere, if you're not genuine, then you're never going to actually succeed in restoring your true nature. You're just continuing to do wrong, actually, even if it looks right. You're not going to ever restore your pure fitrah. So this is how you ensure that you are truly obeying your master and not just seeking the praise of some other slave. You understand me? So again, I don't know how I come across. I have no idea. But I do know myself. I know my life. I know my mistakes. I know my wrongs. And I know immorality and I know bad character extremely well because I have memories. Because I have memories. So when I talk about these things, like I said in an earlier talk, when I talk about these things, I'm not talking as a preacher. I'm more like a whistleblower. I can tell you how all this works because I was deeply embedded in it. You understand me? I'm telling you, I'm not an expert in being good. I'm not an expert in being moral. I'm not an expert in having good character. I'm an expert in the opposite, and I'm an expert in the struggle to not be that way.
Muslims are bad, yeah. Hmm? No, people are bad. People are good. We can be both. We can change. And this is why I get pissed off when people take the things from me that I did out of not want. That's why I was pissed off about $300 worth of vouchers. And I'm done with yous. Yous aren't sincere and yous aren't genuine. I don't need anybody else's validation or approval. I know all about loneliness. I know all about it. The longest I was ever with a single person in my life was my ex-missus, not even my parents. I'm not afraid of being alone. I feel more alone in a room full of people that are disingenuous, insincere. I feel really alone. It's like, ugh. In fact, I feel like I'm entrapped in a cesspit. I can't wait to get out of those situations. It's how I feel when I go to a council meeting. I'm stuck in a cesspit of pigs. It makes me feel filthy. It's not because I think I'm better than anybody. It's because I know they're all up to shenanigans. You can feel it. You just know. It feels off. It's horrid. You know that what's being said isn't really what's being said. You know that any meeting that requires a secret meeting that runs for an hour before that meeting is not really the meeting, it's the display. Show and tell. This is why I'm advocating for the walk away movement. Just walk away from it. It's filthy, it's dirty, it's disgusting. It's what keeps you in the list. It's putrid. It's filth. And as long as you keep voting for it and playing around with it and expecting it to make things better for you, well, just you're bound down to slaves. This is why the whole police force is inherently evil. The people aren't necessarily, but they end up that way. Because the system creates it. It's called for, it's required. Any job that requires you to tell lies to get to the truth has got nothing to do with truth. And everything to do with whacking it over people. It's putrid. If you get a system, a job that's connected to a system of constabulary, judiciary, and so-called corrective services, rehabilitative services. Well, what kind of a correction are we making? From bad to worse? Because that's all that's happening. There's no getting people to open up to their conscience. So they just learn to shut their conscience down. Just get worse and worse and worse. The police get worse and worse and more cold and heartless. And the criminals get worse and worse and more cold and heartless. Because the job requires it. Of each other. It's cops and robbers. I've never played the game. I don't like the game. I never did Simon Says, the hokey pokey, musical chairs, any of your silly bloody birthday games. The birthday party games, pin the tail on a donkey and shit. It's never interested me. I'm in competition with nobody. It's funny, you'd see some people at speed, when my dad raced Speedway, some people just humble racers and enjoyed going out and enjoying the sport. And other people that just had to win at all costs, and they were fucking horrible people. Disgusting, putrid, filthy animals. They couldn't just be happy racing, they had to try and root each other's wives and shit as well. It's a disgusting fucking atmosphere. It's filthy. How I got the nickname Sock, son of Kemble. Kemble's not my dad. But, you know, Mum had an affair with him. Somehow justified because Dad had affairs. How? Can't justify that. Just like me and my ex can't justify things that we did. Neither of us can. There's no justification for what we did. I just own it. The biggest difference between me and her is my kids know that I won't lie to them. And if I break a promise, it's not a lie. It actually is a whoops. And I actually do feel bad for it. I don't make a promise with the intent to break it. So I put this to all you bigots and racist people out there, and people who have been misled and led up the garden path by gronks like Scott Challen, and the mindset of even Pauline, who I'm going to meet Pauline, I'm going to meet your daughter in 2 days. With no preconceptions of what she may be. I've never met her. She might be a lovely person. I think, Pauline, you have been twisted to a bitter place somehow. You don't have to remain that way. And I'm going to try and encourage Lee to send you this video, Pauline. So that maybe I'm throwing you a boat, I'm throwing you a life raft here. You're in deep, really deep. I'm watching you go crazy. I remember the lady from the fish and chip shop. My grandfather introduced me to the lady from the fish and chip shop way back when. And he thought you was all that in a bag of chips. I think a lot differently to what he does. Although I learnt a lot from his lessons, a hell of a lot. But if he stood here and heard me say that I believe in a democratic socialist governing system that has recall elections and the economic flow has to blow outwards, not upwards, he probably wouldn't get his head around that. And this is a man who read books to me like Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, Brave New World, 1984, they were my bedtime stories. Last of the Mohicans, the original Huckleberry Finn. I was reading Blyton and Twain in primary school. That long ago, I don't even remember the stories really anymore, but I remember the lessons from them. That stays with you. The lessons and morals of those stories, they shape who you become. then that all gets messed up with politics and stuff, religion. I'm a homeless Christian. There is no church for me to go to. They're all been messed about with, Mormonised, Luciferianised, Freemasonised. It's disgusting. I watch you all in Parliament and it's pathetic. It is twisted insanity, jumping around and raving like lunatics. You go to court and you're not allowed to speak truth. You're not allowed to just walk in there and tell the truth. You've got to have a lawyer that twists whatever you say, because it's all about, winning some kind of competition. It's not law. That's disgusting. It's putrid. Even if it's a win-win, it's still a win, eh? No good comes of it. All it does is creates victims on both sides of the argument. You know that yourself with family court, Pauline. You've been a great advocate in that. What happened? I think it would be great if you and Bettina aren't spend a bit of time together. You two together could really do some good. Anyway, God bless you.